Hi, my name is Joseph, and today I want to discuss Ridley Scott's Robin Hood, which came out on May 14th, 2010. So this is my second time watching the film, quite recently as well. And in fact, this movie and 310 to Yuma were two of the films that kind of inspired me to start keeping up with making videos for things that I've seen. I was really impressed with 310 to Yuma because of Christian Bale, because of the acting of Christian Bale and Russell Crowe. And I've never really been a Crow fan, so because of that movie, it's what encouraged me to finally watch Robin Hood. And so the first time I watched Robin Hood was about around the time that my 310 to Yuma video came out. But unfortunately, I never did a Robin Hood review because by the time I made the decision to start doing this, it was already about a month, give or take, after I had seen Robin Hood. And I just didn't want to make a video when I was already forgetting some of the characters and the details of the plot and everything like that. Even though I was still thinking about the movie because I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much so that I made a conscious decision to rewatch the film so I could, this is probably going to be one of the first times where I rewatched the film specifically for a video. Or let me rephrase that, I did want to make this video, but unfortunately I spent too much time to construct it or to create it. Thus, I wanted to rewatch the film before I actually did the review. So let's begin with the review. So Ridley Scott's Robin Hood. Right off the bat, let's get the elephant in the room addressed. Is this a Robin Hood movie? Yes and no. So what I really appreciate about Ridley Scott's Robin Hood is a combination of historical fiction with history. And what I mean by that, obviously Robin Hood, scholars do believe that an individual such as Robin Hood may have existed, but Robin Hood's character is not inspired by one specific individual, but rather by multiple people who did similar acts that Robin Hood was doing. So Robin Hood's character is essentially I'm not pronouncing that word correctly, excuse me. I was originally going to say algorithm, it's not algorithm. An agglomeration, there we go. An agglomeration of multiple people to create one individual. A lot like Ragnar Lothbrok, who some scholars believe that he was not one individual, but again, just like with Robin Hood, multiple people who inspired the story, or rather that looks like inspired the story of Ragnar Lothbrok. So that's what I mean by historical fiction, because it's not real, but mixed with history, because I would argue that the point of this movie, or not the point, excuse me, but part of the backdrop of this movie is the Magna Carta. So in case one is not aware about the Magna Carta, this was a document that came about early 13th century. So in 1215, I believe it was, where before 1215, before the creation of the Magna Carta, all power rested with the king. What this meant is that quite literally, if the king wanted to imprison someone, if the king wanted to get rid of someone's land or attaint them, I believe that's the word, attaint, to remove all titles and lands, there was no pushback against that. Why? Well, as the movie points out, the king had divine right, thus was chosen by God and has holy powers to conduct this. It was not until the Magna Carta came to be that the nobility got their rights. Essentially, before the common folk got their rights and not to be mistreated, the nobility was treated the same as common folk, quote unquote treated the same, because obviously the nobility was the aristocrats were much more had leading better lives than the peasants and common folk were. But despite being part of the nobility, again, the king was able to do whatever he wanted with the peasants and nobility. So with the Magna Carta, that helped to set up basic human rights, thus telling the king, you cannot do whatever you want to. You need to acknowledge us as well, again, us being the nobility. So, so this movie combines historical fiction with real historical events, and I think it does a really great job of telling a really fun, fascinating story. The reason why I call it the elephant in the room is because a lot of individuals seem to be disappointed by the fact that Scott's movie that Scott's movie was not wholly a Robin Hood movie. So just focusing on comical antics from King John, comical antics from the sheriff, and Robin Hood doing what he does best, right? More than likely, when most of us think of Robin Hood, we probably think of Disney's Robin Hood and the Fox, or Men in Tights, right? That one movie. So essentially, when we think of Robin Hood, we think of some form of green, bows and arrows, and mischief, right? There is some form of mischief within Scott's Robin Hood, but it's a different kind of mischief. And this actually, let me give a quick example about this. So rather than just attacking noble people and noble men and noble women and aristocrats, one example of Robin Longstride's giving back to the people was when Lady Marian. So really quickly, I did not say who's in this movie, so excuse me. Russell Crowe plays Robin Hood. Kate Blanchett plays Lady Marian. Oh, Oscar Isaac? I didn't know that was Oscar Isaac. He plays Prince John. Oh, that's really shocking. I'm sorry, everyone. This is my first time looking at the actors. That's interesting. Mark Strong plays Sir Godfrey. Actually, I do believe Mark Strong was in another film. The Kingsman. That's right. He's also in Kingsman. That's why he looked familiar. William Hurt. He played William Marshall. Excuse me, everyone. No wonder that character looks so familiar. I used to be a really big Doctor Who fan, so William Hurt plays the War Doctor, I believe his name is. Anywho, sorry. Again, I probably should have looked at the actors before I started the video, but I already knew of Russell Crowe and Clamp Blanked. I was unaware about everyone else. Mark Strong looked familiar, again, Sir Godfrey's character, and so did William Marshall. But it's interesting to know that I do have names to these faces. But Oscar Isaac's character totally caught me off guard. I did not realize he was King John. Anywho, but I just want to point this out because I wanted to start talking about Lady Marian. So she's a character who I would argue is totally invested with their community. And unfortunately, she is aware that her community is suffering. They don't have any money nor food. So when the grain collectors come to take the grain from Nottingham, that's where she lives, what does Robin Longstride do? He speaks with the friar. Oh no, excuse me everyone, because I really liked him and I want to make sure I get his name correct. Friar Tuck, excuse me, he was an awesome character. Friar Tuck, played by Mark Addy. I'm gonna mention Will Scarlet as well, played by Scott Grimes, because I liked his character. Anywho, going back though, Robin speaks to Friar Tuck, letting him know, oh, I seem to notice that you have an abundance of bees. And Tuck explains, but that's his, if he could choose to be, his livelihood is not of that of being a friar, but of taking care of the bees. It's what gives his life purpose. And Longstride, without a hiccup, just basically states it would be a shame if the church were to discover this and you had to share with the community your honey. And then the Friar Tuck thinks about it and he states, well, what if the grain that's being taken from here, what if it was stolen by robbers? And that's the compromise that Friar Tuck has with Longstride. And what I really love about this scene is the fact that it's not just Longstride who's coming up with this mischief, but also the group of his gang as well. Well, I guess Friar Tuck is not yet part of his gang. And I love how during the nighttime, they being Robin Longstride's group, they do end up stealing the grain back from the church. And then it's Friar Tuck who states, after they succeeded, we should plant this under the moonlight. And Longstride asks, well, why? And Tuck explains, well, the church becomes suspicious. I could just say it was a miracle. So it was a miracle why we have grain all of a sudden. And they do exactly that. And it was just a really awesome scene. And we also start seeing the romance between Lady Marian and Robin Longstride. And why does he start liking Robin? And I truly believe it's because he starts recognizing that he is also concerned about the community. Longstride's also not just concerned about himself, but about the people that he's interacting with. I really did love that. And there's just so many other moments from the movie too. I'm getting, as nerdy as it sounds, but I'm getting chills because it's such a great scene. And I'm thinking of other scenes where it gives me just as equal amount of chills as well, like when the orphans end up joining the cast to protect Nottingham, or when they join Lady Marian to go against the French. Really awesome film. Would I recommend it? I really would. If one is concerned about the fact that this movie contains the name Robin Hood, yet there's not comedy in the slapstick kind of way, comedy in the obvious kind of way. One is concerned about the amount of historical interjection into this story. I would just say go in with an open mind and focus on the characterization, and more than likely one is going to have a great time. Even King John's character, who is such a arrogant brat in the movie, one is not going to like his character, but more than likely they're going to love the portrayal of his character, again played by Oscar Isaac, especially with the way that the movie ends, and the way that the movie ends as well when it's stating a very reminiscent for me of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. As a quick refresher, when The Dark Knight ends, Gordon, I was going to say Gordon Freeman, Commissioner Gordon, excuse me, Commissioner Gordon, when he tells his son, or rather explains to his son that Batman's now an outlaw, he's going to be hunted by the law. It was kind of reminiscent for me of that, but not as exciting and also not as heroic. But essentially, King John explains that Robin Longstride's going to go ahead and become an outlaw for pretending to be a knight because he was pretending to be William Marshall's. Oh, William Marshall. He was William Hurt. Excuse me. Okay. Sorry, everyone. William Marshall. No. Excuse me. He played Sir Walter Luxley's son. Sorry about that, everyone. So let me rephrase that. Robin Longstride was pretending to be Sir Walter Loxley's son. And because of that, that's why King John makes Longstride an outlaw, because it's against the law to impersonate a knight. If I could ask Ridley Scott, I think this movie would have done a lot better if it wasn't called Robin Hood. I think it could have just been called Robin Longstride. According to the light research that I did, I don't think Ridley Scott wanted to name his movie Robin Hood. I believe that was forced upon him because of because of Hollywood, the powers that be. They felt like this movie wouldn't gain her a lot of attraction, so thus they forced him to put the name of Robin Hood. I don't know how much truth there is in that, but I am inclined to believe that, just because, again, although Robin Hood is part of the story, it's not Robin Hood, it's Robin Longstride. So I think really Scott was aware of the connections that naming his character Robin Longstride would have to Robin Hood, but then the movie, again, not the movie, sorry, the powers that be, the agents, I suppose, and one knows what I mean, right? The when one is trying to create a movie, but the people in suits, they say no, it needs to be a certain way. They're the ones who told Ridley Scott it needs to be called Robin Hood, because then if it's called Robin Hood, people are going to come and watch the movie. If you name it Robin Longstride or the Magna Carta, the birth of the Magna Carta, that's not going to be very intriguing or very interesting. But yeah. So again, would I recommend this movie? Yes, I really would. If one has heard negative comments about this movie, I would highly encourage you to look into those comments. Are they talking about the fact that it's not a Robin Hood movie? Or are they actually talking about the quality of the movie? More than likely, most negative comments is going to be about the fact that it's not a Robin Hood movie, rather than focusing on the quality. And again, the quality of this movie, the writing was strong. And then, at the risk of sounding, interjecting some modern day politics into this, or not politics, but some mindset. If one is looking for films with strong women leads, strong female leads, this is a perfect example of that. I know one would probably argue that there was elements of Lady Marian that was still too feminine, but I would argue for a movie that came out in 2010, she was a strong woman who had agency, independence, and although she was forced to pretend to be married to an individual, the movie does a great to be married to Robin Longstride, pretending to be Loxley's son. There was a reason for this, because unfortunately, if it was discovered that Loxley's son had passed away, and after Loxley Sr. passes away, then the land is going to go back to the king. Thus, Lady Marian will have nowhere to live. She's going to be homeless. So that's the only reason why she ends up participating in this ruse that her husband is back, Robin Longstride, when in reality her husband has deceased and passed away. And again, I think that does not take away from Lady Marian's agency, but rather it does add upon it, because unfortunately she's aware of the situation that she's in, and she's doing what she can do. So yeah, I really did enjoy. I was gonna say Feature to You. I really did enjoy Robin Hood. I would more than likely rewatch it again, maybe in 6 months, maybe even next year. It's just one of those fun movies where if one wants something. If one wants to watch something with strong writing, strong characterization, and a fun story, this really does contain that. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you've seen Robin Hood, Ridley Scott's Robin Hood, let me know your opinion about the movie. Did you enjoy it? Were you upset that it wasn't very Robin Hoody? Robin Hoodie as in, again, not a lot of slapstick comedy, not a lot of obvious comedy. And it was a little bit more serious than one was anticipating. If you did enjoy the movie, why did you enjoy it? I would love to hear your opinions and thoughts. Please let me know in the comments below or via personal messages too. Have a great day and take care.